Welcome to episode 15 of In Touch with iOS, a podcast for sharing tips, apps, and gear for iPhone and iPad, along with related technologies that get us using iOS in a fun, productive way, and meaningful way, too. I am your host, Dave Ginsburg, and Melissa is off this week, but I am super pleased to say I would like to welcome our special guest, Mr. Barry Folk. How are you doing, Barry?
Well, thank you, Dave. I am doing very well. Thank you for having me over at In Touch with iOS Campus East.
Or Midwest, I think it is.
Midwest, yes. It's very nice. So this is nice when we can do face-to-face.
Yeah. And I don't do podcasts face-to-face very often,
No.
so this will be great. We can give you a lot of great things we are going to talk about today. Specifically, we'll talk about iOS 11. There were some security issues that happened this week. We'll hit upon that, and a new Apple Store opening. We're going to start off with that in a bit here, and all kinds of other stuff. But we'll definitely focus a lot on some of the new things that came out on with iOS 11, because we really haven't spent a lot of focused time on that. So
Sure.
Figured I'd throw that out. So. First thing I wanted to talk about was there's a new Apple Store in Chicago. Of course, we all knew that, right? Because we're both from Chicago.
Yes,
so
we were hearing all the construction rumors, and of course, you might have peeked around to see some of the stuff. Although they do a very good job of hiding most of that when they actually do the construction.
And the Mac Observer, our friend Brian Chaffin, I'm going to make sure I say his last name right.
Correct.
He wrote an article up in Mac Observer today about the Apple Store. It's opening what they call a new generation store, which I'm super stoked. I can't wait. I'm actually at the store. Actually, as we record this, it's going to open tomorrow, which is October 20th. It doesn't open until 5 p.m., which I found interesting. That it's kind of a late opening. They probably have last minute fixes up with their store and all that stuff. So, but looking at the pictures, I mean, as we knew. One of the greatest things is it's going to be right on the riverfront, and that's right in the heart of the Magnificent Mile in Chicago, right downtown, right in Michigan and Wacker. And,
it's a fantastic location, and they've really revitalized the whole river area. And I think Apple's just smart to get into some of these great spaces, and with the intent of these stores to be places to not just get repairs or buy things, it's also a place that they want to not just hang out, but also be a place to learn and discover. And what a great location. Now, it's going to be interesting to see how things are handled in the Chicago winter, but definitely during the spring and summer and early fall, it's going to be a great location. I'm very excited to see what everything looks like.
Yeah, and the picture it's on that article, of course, we'll have a link to it in the show notes, is the front entrance of the store, and looks like the roof, as we predicted, looks like the top of a MacBook Pro, which I think is so cool. I can't wait to see the real aerial shots, because they were just showing the preliminary ones. But there are a lot of collaboration, and that's the biggest thing why Apple felt that they wanted to make this store one of their biggest stores. Is there's so many collaborators and great creative people in Chicago, and that's why they decided to expand the store, because the store that the former location was right down the street, and it was a nice store, but I think this is just going to blow it away. I'm just looking at the pictures, even the seating, and I mean, this is truly going to be a town square, like Angel Ahrens mentioned during the keynote earlier in September.
And one of the things I think that's interesting is, like you say, it's taking this to a whole nother level. The first flagship was a beautiful store, great glass staircase, very nice location. But this one is, I think they're really trying to expand to be a presence. One of the things that they sent emails out to people in the area, probably everywhere. But
I would venture to say probably everywhere.
But I mean, they're going to be doing things like even photo walks. So they're going to leave the store, but go with someone that's using Apple equipment and talk about things and show off the amazing architecture that Chicago has. I mean, there really couldn't be to me, a more beautiful way just to walk up and down the river there, look at the buildings. Just
looking at this picture, it's just breathtaking.
Yeah.
And in the summer, it's going to be amazing, right on this the front entrance off Michigan Avenue, and it's going to be absolutely beautiful. And I can't wait. I'll be gonna.
You'll be online.
Well, hopefully, I'll be downtown on Saturday on the 21st. But I'm still thinking I'm being pretty crazy to go down there, because I don't know how crazy busy it's going to be. I'm sure there's going to be a line to get into the place.
I'm sure, but it's absolutely worth it, and to take pictures and post them up in the show notes would be great. Yeah,
absolutely. So there was one other thing I thought of too before this. Not in our notes. I'm going to throw you off here, but I want to throw you off. We did talk about in the last episode, in episode 14, about a problem I had with my iPhone 8.
Yes,
and that was the oleophobic display, and there was
Right.
an edge on it. There was a problem, and I thought it was pretty surprising that it happened. I don't need to really, go back and listen to it in episode 14, and what I just talked about relates to what that happened. So it was an interesting experience I had with Apple, and they'd exchange it. And this week, I actually got a call from somebody in Austin, Texas, because I got the phone. I knew the phone number. I looked it up, and when they call me, and you're always getting these damn spam calls.
Exactly.
So I looked it up. I said, I'm going to answer this one. I have a feeling this is somebody from Apple, and sure enough, it was. They wanted to get my feedback. It was from the AppleCare department. They wanted to get my feedback over really what I experienced, and as far as they have to determine what caused it, and the gal actually went through and asked me some questions, and she asked about the case, what kind of case I had. I said, I have an Apple case. I of course told her I'm a podcaster. She laughed and said, oh, that's great, and moved on. But she proceeded to ask about the screen, but apparently they never saw it, because if the store took it in and obviously took it in as a exchange, because I just got a brand new one. In fact, right. The store had to go into the safe to grab one because they had a stash for it, and they said, realize, we better replace this, because this is pretty ridiculous. So I was on the phone with her for probably about 10 minutes, 10, 15 minutes. And she went through some of the items, and I told her, this is what it was. And I said, I have a picture of it if you want. And she's like, oh yeah, that'd be great. And so she emailed me, and I forwarded it back to her, and then she wanted pictures of the case too. So, but I found that to be interesting that somebody, in their department for AppleCare was actually trying to get some feedback relating to what potentially caused it. Because the picture I have on our notes actually shows the guys asking me, "Did you reboot the phone? And did you go through all this stuff?" And it was so crazy that that happened. So I thought that'd be interesting. So I just thought of that. I'd make sure.
And I think you bring up a good story about that. Yep. That they do take, especially with a new device, right? Because there could be unforeseen problems. Is there something that now that it's in the hands of many millions of people, what did they not think of testing? What unique scenarios may be something that is causing this? Is it weather related? Is it case related? Whatever it could be. And I think that's smart. I mean, Apple could, just, say you're holding it wrong, Dave.
Yeah,
or you could,
exactly.
They could just kind of say, oh, it's not a big deal. But the fact that they call it actually speaks volumes, because many companies don't bother. Right. And I think it's, it's unfortunate. It's frustrating for you that you had to go through all that, but it's also good to see that they're not just saying, okay, well, here's a new phone, buy. Maybe there is a problem, and they can take your case and learn something about it. I mean, that's the way good customer service is handled.
Absolutely. So I thought that was a great experience, and I just thought of it before we started the show. So I'm glad I mentioned it, threw it on our notes here. So it's.
And I take it the new one's been.
Oh yeah, this new one's absolutely awesome. I mean, and we'll talk about your thoughts about the iPhone and obviously the iPhone 10 is coming out in I think it looks like
the pre-orders start a week from tomorrow when we're recording. Yeah.
So we'll talk about that in a second here. So that was pretty impressive, and I agree with you that Apple is just is pretty amazing if they care that much to call their customers to really find out what really happened.
And it's one of those situations, and hopefully that your situation is relatively unusual.
Very unusual.
But even if you get 10 or 15 cases, that's something that they shouldn't ignore. And if you take that the amount of time they spent on it, researching it, talking to you, gathering notes, having discussions around it, that actually becomes a significant amount of time. In any large business like that, it can be jarring to have to put resources towards a problem, but it's also the right thing to do. Right. Even if you say, that's why when people say, oh, the iPhone 10 is late and this, you know what? First off, they didn't announce dates. Right. And the second thing is maybe they are running into actual problems. I'd rather have them fix it and try to get a product out the door that hopefully runs into no problems. Right. No, we don't want to wait. And yes, I'm very excited about the iPhone 10. But if they say, you know what, we're not ready, I'll live with it. I mean, sure, they'll take a financial hit on their stocks. They'll get blasted all over the tech press. But at the end of the day,
they already have with the iPhone 8 as it is, because they're waiting. Sure. So anyway, we'll talk about the iPhone 8 and iPhone 10 here in just a minute. But I wanted to touch a little bit about the crack patch, what that was all about. Sure. As I expected, Dave Hamilton, our good friend from the Mac Observer and Mac Geek Gab, wrote an excellent article, and he's keeping it up to date. And Dave, if anybody doesn't read his stuff, you're crazy not to, because he just is great with keeping up on this stuff. Yes. So we'll have a link in the show notes about this article relating to the WPA2 crack, which stands for Key Reinstallation Attack. And it diminishes the potential security of almost all password protected Wi-Fi connections. So it was pretty serious.
It's one of those situations. It's very serious in certain circumstances, but
Right.
you should still take it as serious that you want to address this as quickly as possible. Now, in the case here, the best thing for us to do is get an update to iOS.
Right.
But
Which we're
also
still
if you have-
waiting.
Yep. And if you have access points that you manage, whether it's at your house or your business or wherever you may be, it's also important to get that updated because you need
Right.
to really get that addressed as well, because now you can manage the vulnerability or avoid it across a wide spectrum of devices.
Right.
I know in a large corporate environment like you and I both are in,
Right.
we've already started working on updating our access points. Unfortunately for us, it's a big project. I mean,
Big
we
project.
have
Same here.
hundreds, if not thousands, of these access points in our headquarters.
Cisco
You've
is
got the
most-
same.
what
Yeah,
we have.
I think you and I probably have the same
Yep.
access points. But again, I'm pleased to see that here everybody seems to be taking it seriously. Cisco and Aruba and other wireless vendors have quickly put out firmware updates. Still waiting for Apple. I think 11.1 beta's got it fixed.
Yeah, they said 11.1 beta already fixed it. They're they're beta 3 right now, so I would think it's pretty close. They're going to release this very shortly.
I'm guessing within the week because they'll
Yeah.
probably want to get it out right around the time that they have the pre-orders hit.
Let's face it, iOS 11 had its share of bugs. I mean, it was at 11.03 now and fixed a couple some more bugs, but
Well, you know what 11.1 fixes.
yeah, the was it the
Well,
the Touch ID problem.
Well, it's not only that. I shouldn't say fixes. It gives us new emojis.
oh that Mr.
Come on,
Pokemon Go. I
They
know.
always hold it back because I think it's smart because everybody wants the new
Sure.
emojis. So it's like,
I
well, we're
agree.
not going to put it on the original X.0 release. We're going to do
Oh
it.
yeah, well they want to make people wait.
Yeah.
I understand.
And it forces the upgrade and gets them really good numbers. And that's fine. I mean, they should focus on features before the emojis.
So take a check out of this article. Dave does a great job of listing all the top routers that are out there.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting enough, Apple doesn't seem to think that their routers are affected, which I find to be
That was
very
interesting
strange.
since they haven't been really updated in quite a while. So.
And I mean, they've never officially said that those routers, the time capsule or any of their devices have been put to end of life, and they're still being sold, but they're also
Sure.
2 or 3 years old technology. So,
Right.
but the one I have is Netgear, and I think they have an advisory, but they haven't done anything about it. It also includes the Orbi. I believe you have the Arrow.
Correct.
And the Arrow is, I believe, was updated. Did you? I assume you ran yours. And
Yeah, I actually have mine set to auto update, so mine's good to go. Which it's one of those.
My Netgear does that. I haven't had to check to see if it does. So.
It's always one of those. Do I want the auto update versus having control? I think at this point in my life, I'll just let someone else manage that.
So moving on, let's. I wanted to talk to you a little bit about it. As I talked about it on the previous episodes, I chose not to upgrade to the Watch OS, Watch Series 3. We'll start with the Watch, and then we'll move on to the iPhone here, because we haven't had a lot of discussion about the Apple Watch Series 3, because obviously I haven't talked to really anybody that's actually purchased it. I just chose after when I heard that they were having all those problems with the cellular. It's like, you know what? I'm just going to save my money because I have the Series 2, and the Series 2 works perfectly fine.
Yeah, the Series 2 is good. It's one of those. I think if you have the Series 0, it's absolutely worth.
Yeah, if you have the first gen, which I had, and I mean I sold it. So, but what's your thoughts on the Series 3 and so far what you've experienced?
So my general experience has been excellent. So one of the things, even though it's slow because of transferring a lot of information over Bluetooth, the process of unpairing and repairing to a new watch is very easy, and that's really nice. So, and they've made some improvements in the whole process, and the processor itself on the Watch OS or on the Series 3 does make everything faster. Now, again, if you really are wearing both watches, which, well, okay, I have actually done.
I know you do that.
But as a comparison, at the moment, I'm only wearing just the Series.
Oh, you don't have your Hermes.
No. And I did not buy the Hermes Series 3 either. I went with the Sport with.
I want that band. I really was tempted to get
this
it.
is the I'm wearing the, I think it's called the Deep Olive Sport.
Yeah, that's the one I wanted.
Yeah, it's extremely comfortable, and Apple deserves credit for all the watch bands being itself so comfortable, and they have not changed any of the ways that the watch bands connect. So even the original watch bands still connect. So that's a bit of a plus, but it is snappy. So again, from a Series 2 to Series 3, you'll notice it a little bit, but definitely from a Series 0, you're gonna be like, wow.
And battery life alone, I'm sure is. Yeah. How? In fact, speaking of battery life, how is battery life on it?
The battery life is fantastic, and I'll have to check to see where I am at. So I've worn it all day, and I've done. We did a little bit of exercise during lunch, and it's at 79%, and it's it's in the evening as we record here in Chicago. So the battery life's been fantastic. Now I don't use the cellular much.
Okay.
I will say now I have T-Mobile as my primary carrier, and the experience of adding it was very easy. I'm not as many people aren't thrilled about the $10 add-on for T-Mobile. They give 3 months free. I think Verizon, AT&T, and Sprint all have some variant of that. But what's something to think about is that it's $10 fee, but when you add on the taxes and the governmental fees and stuff, it's closer to $17. And then it's like, that's a lot more than I'd really like to spend for something not using much. And I'm hoping that competition will push that down at some point. But of course, I do want to play with it. And what I'm finding is it's more of an after the fact that I noticed that, I was getting notifications and stuff, and I realized that I'd left my phone somewhere that would have been out of range. Mm. And that's nice because now there's no uninterrupted period. I'm getting the email notifications. I'm getting my text messages. And I have gone out once just to test doing the theoretical downloading music, playing music, using my AirPods. And that's magic. It really is. Now, I'm not the type of person that's going to do that all the time, but there are people that have a normal fitness routine. Sure. They go out every morning or go running. And this would be just an ideal device. And once people start to adapt to Watch OS 4 and some of the related features, and I think there still needs to be some changes probably in the APIs for some of the programmers, I think more and more apps will be able to take advantage of it. Podcasting is probably the biggest one, where now you can use the Apple Podcast, but if you want to use certain other third-party ones, you can't do things. So, and Marco Arment, who writes the Overcast app, which is the one I use, he's commented that some of the things that he's had to kind of hack around for Watch OS 3 are no longer available. And so he's kind of having to doing a rethink. Now he thinks over time it'll get there, but the way the watch is, and a lot of this is to conserve battery and processing power. So I'm hoping some of that will happen, because that's, for me, is a deal breaker. I listen to podcasts all the time when I'm out and about, and not to have that feature is frustrating. Now, the flip side of it is, and this is one of those people like or don't like, is that it will show the now playing face on the watch if you have something running like that. I love it because I can skip forward or back really easily. Right. But also at times you're like, well, I don't want to see that. I want to see what time it is. So, again, it's early days. I'm very excited. I use my watch all the time. It's a great companion for me still. It's just, I don't think I would ever have it necessarily replace my watch, but I do feel like I've cut one bit of that cord. Okay. All right. Well, so I'm good. I'm glad we got to get a first hand review of it. And it is snappy. I mean, Series 2 is too. Yeah. I mean, they've really, whatever they've done. And I think it's an engineering marvel. I think it's 0.2 of a millimeter thicker, but that they've managed to incorporate a SIM. And a SIM in there. Yeah. That's some pretty amazing tech behind the scenes. That, again, I agree. I mean, you know me, I'm edging. I would love to get it, but sometimes you gotta be more reasonable, especially financially. I just sure. I mean, because that's one of the reasons I didn't buy I don't even have the steel case, which I like that because of the sapphire glass, but I'm like, I don't want to spend $500-600 if I can avoid it. So I went with just the standard sport model this time around. And I'm happy with it, and I think it looks nice. Yeah, and so far so good. Space gray. So yeah, and so chances are there'll be a Rev next year, and that might be the one where the Wi-Fi bug has been addressed with a WatchOS update. So I have never run into that, with one exception of work before, because we have an authentication mechanism. Oh, okay. So I think my work's a little flaky anyway. Thank you for giving us your thoughts on the Series 3. And definitely, you'll have to think about it. Just think about what you want to get. And like I said, just to wrap it up, that discussion is, if you have the first gen, that's a no-brainer. Time to upgrade. Even if you have Series 1, I would consider it too. I think so. And just the little features, they keep improving the waterproofing, the dust proofing, and all that. I don't even think about wearing it when I'm in the shower or doing the dishes or whatever. Yeah, I'm a little more leery about it, but I think I'm going to start getting loosened up a little, especially like to swim with it too. Exactly. So let's move on and what you really wanted to talk about, which is, did you upgrade? And I know you did because
it's your profession, and plus you have
True.
the luxury of being able to get these phones through work, so that always helps.
Right.
So your thoughts on the 8 versus 10. Everybody knows my thoughts. I wrote up a little article about it when I said what my thoughts were. I finally decided.
Dave.
Yeah, well,
No,
I decided.
I think you have valid points.
I decided that the 8 Plus was fine for me.
Sure.
I mean, as I said, the iPhone 10 is going to be a first generation model.
Right.
It's going to be, to me, beta model. I mean, I think people are going to be they're going to have some unhappiness. I mean,
and I think that's where you're going to have two camps on that. You're going to have people like us that understand it and can live with some of these challenges, where the general consumer is going to be not so forgiving, going, "Oh, hey, how come this might not be working?" I mean, who knows? Apple's pretty good with this stuff, but still,
and financially too.
Yeah, no,
really, you're talking a big jump in price. So, and I've touted the Apple's upgrade program, which is absolutely awesome.
Yep.
I mean, I walked into the store, and of course, my experience with the 8 Plus was I walked into the store and they had no problems getting me one because there was plenty of stock. Unlike in past iPhone releases, it was always a challenge to find one. So, because I didn't have the iPhone 7 Plus for a good 4 or 5 months because I didn't pre-order it. So,
wait, I thought you got up at 2 in the morning. Oh no, wait, that's me.
No, I have done that. I mean,
Yes,
in fact, I did do it with the watch, but then I canceled the order.
No, I know.
So, so give us some of your thoughts that relates to the 8. I mean, obviously, like we said earlier, the 10 is going to go on sale pre-order in a week. Mm-hmm. And what your thoughts are on it?
So, I mean, I'll talk about my experience with 8 Plus as well. So, like you mentioned, I mean, we do deploy several thousand of these devices. So I do test every device that comes out from Apple and try to we try to remain homogeneous. We'd like to have one standard across the board. Right. We've standardized, we've had the 4, the 4S. We skipped the 5. We actually skipped that for the generation, went to the 5S. And we've kind of gone every year and just taken the models. But when they decided to split the sizes, it was an interesting challenge. So we actually went out and had people test both and gave us feedback. And for our sales force, it was quite significantly leaning towards the smaller one, that people just felt more comfortable with it. Mm-hmm. It was closer to what they were used to. And so we decided to go with that. And only a few people were like, "Oh, no, I have to have the bigger phone." And we're like, "Why?" Mm-hmm. And they didn't have a good compelling business case for it. So we did standardize it. Same thing with the 8. It's a great phone. Absolutely. It's fast. It's well built. It's something that I highly recommend for anybody. Again, if you have the 7 or the 7 Plus going up to the 8 or 8 Plus, it's not a huge upgrade. There are some nice things, and we'll talk about that, especially on the 8 Plus. Mm-hmm. But if you're going from anything before that, I think it's an excellent upgrade. So I've been using the 8 Plus as my primary work phone for now, and because I flip between that and my 7 Plus for my personal, you can start to feel the difference, even though it's like the speed differences aren't that much, but they are noticeable. Right. And again, if you're using iOS 11, which we'll also talk about, the way it's kind of baked into the new phone, you just feel that it was designed for that, those features. As far as the 10 goes, I know people have talked about this. When you expect heavy demand, the best thing to do is use your iOS app for the Apple Store. Right. And the trick there is to basically set aside everything ahead of time. Look at the phone that you want. You basically choose the model, you choose the color, you choose the carrier, the RAM options, and then you mark it. You can't order it, but you can mark it as a favorite. Right. So it basically stays in your bag, so that when it finally goes available for pre-order, in theory, you can just go boom and then use Touch ID or whatever your payment choice is, and it'll go through a little bit faster. Now, who knows what's going to happen when they come out? Yeah. As rumors are saying that the supply chain is going to be tight. Yeah, and that's fine. I mean, I in a weird sort of way, because I have played with the 8, I may not have that envy if the 10s are out and I can't get one right away. Exactly. Because I have been really, really happy with 8 Plus. But that said, I'm sure I will still have some. So I'll try it out. And I think, you and I, Dave and Melissa, hopefully we can talk about that once it comes out. And I can hopefully on November 3rd, it'll arrive at my house. Most likely it'll be probably the end of the year or early in January. That's fine. And it'll be interesting. I'm really excited about some of these new features, and Dave, if you don't mind, I'll talk a little bit about the software.
Go for it.
Just because there are features of the software that take advantage of the hardware that Apple excels at. And AR is probably one of the biggest things right now where there are some apps, there's some games, and I'm really enjoying them. I don't play a lot of games, but there are a couple of games that have come out. Well, yeah. Well, and Pokemon, in a sense, was one of the original AR type things, but they're going to improve it.
Sure.
Yes, I do like my Pokemon.
Okay.
And it allows you to try some new things that you really couldn't do before. And that's where it's exciting. And there are different ways of visualizing. Like touch was a whole new interface. AR opens up certain things. Then yes, it's been around at certain levels, but giving ARKit to the programmers, and I know Tim Cook talked about this recently, it's early days. The App Store in 6 months will have some very interesting applications and things that are more solid than just the people who want to rush out and get something, which I don't blame them, right? There's always the gold rush when something new is there. But with this being developed over time, you'll see that really take effect. And I think you're going to see not only that, but you'll see how AR becomes, certain features of it will become standardized. We don't know yet. I mean, the swipe to refresh was not something Apple invented. Many of the apps now use like a flicking motion, like Tweetbot, when you want to get the picture and bring you back to the main interface. Love that. I wish every app did things like that. So I'm curious where AR is going to take that. So we'll see where that goes. I think that definitely is one of the key features of the combination of the iPhone 8 and 10, along with iOS 11 and ARKit. The other thing that, if you mentioned the iPhone 10 that I'm excited about, is a lot of the facial tracking, facial recognition. Yeah. And I know it was kind of silly on stage, but it showed the power of something like this. And Snapchat specifically, when they had they had the masks on Craig Federighi's face, it was. I mean, that really is something, if you think back just a couple years ago, would have taken massive computing power and a long time. It couldn't be done in real time. And now it's going to be built into the phone. And again, I think people are going to be able to leverage that, do some really clever things with it, and just improve. It may not be something where like, well, hey, this is the reason to buy a phone, but you're going to say, well, you know what? When Dave and I are doing, FaceTime, it may be able to take those features into making the experience better in the way it tracks certain things, the way we can do things on our devices, and it will trickle down. Now, I'm going to go theoretical on you, Dave.
All right.
Okay. So we've heard John Hakey, the president of Niantic, who makes Pokemon, and Tim Cook talk that like AR glasses are probably way out there.
Right.
But if you think about the notch on the iPhone 10, how small that space is, and yes, it's there, and they couldn't necessarily hide it.
Right.
Now think about it on the bridge of your eyeglasses. That's not that much space. I mean, you're not going to really see it. Like if you're wearing a pair of glasses, you're not going to see that notch when you're looking out. And if it can do facial recognition, and if they have a way of beaming information to me, I mean, Google Glass had some great ideas. It wasn't really well implemented. It was probably ahead of its time and kind of looked goofy. But concepts are there, right? When I'm looking at you, Dave, and it can use that facial recognition externally and saying, okay, this is Dave Ginsburg. My really goal of something like this is I can go to a conference and I've met someone a year ago and it pops up their name and it says, yes, there's Johnny Ive. Okay, I recognize Johnny Ive, but I recognize somebody that, and it could show me pieces of information. I think it's a great business use case. I mean, yes, it could be abused for salespeople and all that, but I'm not great with names. And it's something for me that would solve a problem for me. And that would be a reason why I might buy something. Or, it's nice to be able to take video and capture moments with children or family or friends. Right. But there are other things that it can enhance. You go on a vacation and, you've gone from wearing these god-awful headphones with a tape recorder saying, okay, you're walking around the Art Institute of Chicago. It tells you things. Well, now you can either put on a pair of glasses that they give you, or if you have your own, you can maybe download a quick app. And it'll just show you like extra information. Who is the artist? What else did they do? Give you guided directions. And there are apps that exist today that do that on your phone. Yeah. But to make it even more seamless, so you're just walking and you don't have to have something right in front of your face. It's just there. I think that's some really exciting stuff. I mean, I'm really looking for this. And again, early days. And there's a great article that, Dave, that you had forwarded to me about the history of iOS and the kind of the evolution. I want to see that article in 5 years or 10 years from now and see. Yes, it was 2017 with iOS 11 where ARKit first came out. And now look at us in 2025, where we're all driving autonomous cars and we have, whatever devices. It's exciting stuff. People get frustrated living through some of these changes. I find it exciting. I mean, I think that's why we're in the business that we're in.
Absolutely.
And that evolution will continue on. People keep pushing it. There'll be great applications. There'll be some silly stuff, which will be fun. Yes, I will play Pokemon with my glasses when they come out.
It's okay.
But that's where technology in general, and and I hope between Google and Samsung and Apple and Microsoft, I mean, the competition keeps driving this forward.
Yeah. No, I mean that's a really great insight, and it's never going to end, and that's what continues to keep things evolving in our world. I mean, that's what drives both of us. I mean, just love the technology and love getting involved with it. So
I just need that technology where they can take my brain into a robot body, so I can live a long time.
Same here. So let's kind of go through a little more in detail iOS 11. You have some of your favorite features as well as I do. Why don't we dig in a little bit about some of your favorites? We've talked about the control center, which I absolutely love. Mm-hmm. The screen capture, the screenshots are now more editable.
Absolutely.
And the screen recording is unbelievable. I even discovered, and I'll talk about that a little bit. I discovered, if anybody's familiar with the support tool, which is free for non-commercial use, Team Viewer.
Okay.
Team Viewers, I mean, for us in the support world, is a great tool to use for non-commercial use, but many people out there do purchase it for commercial use because they want to help support other people.
Sure.
And when did you ever be able to remote into an iOS device?
Right.
Never.
Exactly.
Well, they just came out. I'm completely psyched about this, and I know probably what will happen is it won't be available for the free with non-commercial use version, but you never know.
Sure.
It takes advantage of the screen recording feature that's in iOS. So you basically when you hold the button down, and normally when you held the button down before you started the recording, it would give you a choice, turn the microphone on or off. But there's also a step in there that allows you to go in and you can choose Team Viewer. So then once it starts recording, and you now are able to give your partner the code that you normally do when you remote into a Mac.
Right.
And then you have full view of that screen, which is,
that's huge.
It's
one
of the
perspective.
For support, you and I both being in the support world.
Yes.
With this, I think this is a game changer, and I hope to see others follow suit. I mean, I use a tool in the commercial world called Palmgar.
Mm-hmm.
Can't imagine that they won't be looking at this.
No,
soon.
in fact, they've been trying desperately.
Yeah,
and Palmgar's one that we've used as well. And
and they just did we just did an upgrade on ours, and it's a lot more improved. I mean, I can actually install it on a Mac client, which is great.
Yep.
And so that in itself, and I'm just saying this on a support level of things, but just that in itself, adding that feature, what Team Viewer did is great. The screen recording in itself is awesome because it records a video, and you can actually show somebody how you do it and record your voice on the fly. What did you have to do before? A third-party app.
Right, or you have to jailbreak or something terrible, which obviously you're not going to do in the corporate world.
Jailbreaking, in my opinion, is just gone by the wayside. I think you don't hear about it as much as you used to in the past. So that was one of the. I just wanted to bring that up as far as that feature. But Control Center, obviously, a lot of great features that have been added to that.
And it's customizable, which is nice too.
Which it wasn't before. So I mean, that in itself was just some great stuff. But if you want to touch a bit more about screenshots, I mean, I think that's another powerful feature.
Yeah, and you mentioned that, and it's both available on the iPhone and the iPad, where you do your standard screen cap, where you're hitting the virtual home button and the side button.
Right.
Then it takes it, but now you have the option, so it kind of flips down to the bottom left corner.
Right.
If you tap on it, it comes up full screen. And it gives you some choices, like a thin marker or a thicker one. You can change the colors. You have a couple of other options. And when the beta first came out back in, I think it was the middle of June, the simplest thing was I would take a screen cap and then basically draw with my finger a quick highlight or circle around something that I wanted to highlight for somebody, and then send them that screen capture. Right. Instead of, here's the screen cap. What am I looking for? Well, now it's extremely clear. I mean, it's this most simple, basic feature, but it's so easy to do, and it's elegant. There's obviously a nice undo in case you grab the wrong thing, but you can also delete the screenshot. Right. So it's also a lot easier just in managing all that. And again, it's the elegance of the way it's all incorporated. So it's very smooth. I really like that. And that's definitely a feature that I use every day. But there's a lot of other features that they did. You mentioned a few of those, but I also like some of the kind of behind the scenes features that make things easier. So Dave, one of the first things I asked you when I came here today is like, hey, can I get on your Wi-Fi? Well, we're both running iOS 11. So literally I brought my phone and my iPad over to you basically. And as soon as it came up, I'm on the screen.
Yep.
You see the screen saying, do you wish to share? You hit OK. And then it literally, I saw the little balls flash and then I'm on your Wi-Fi. That's it. It's amazing. So no more printing outside. Passwords. You have some guests come over. You don't have to necessarily, print out, oh, here's my Wi-Fi password. You don't want to give it out.
Right. I
don't see what it is.
Yeah. No.
I mean, yes, I can connect every time I come here.
Yep.
But it's a nice, secure way and quick way of making it a lot easier, especially if you have people, my mom comes over and all that, and it's easier for me to, like, here, just give me your device. Well, some people may not be comfortable.
Let's hope she upgraded.
Yeah, no, I always make her upgrade. And my mom's a riot because she likes the latest technology, even though she doesn't use half of it, but she literally will tell all her friends, hey, guess who has the new iPhone 8? And then she shows it off to everybody. So things like that are nice. New device setup as well.
You're reading my mind here. I was going to hit that too. I went through it because I went to the Apple store when I went, and you probably did too when you got your new phone.
Right.
In fact, when I returned the other phone, I completely forgot to do it. Like, gosh darn it! So I experienced it on both ways, manual and automatic. And manual is slow. It took me a lot longer to get it done. But the automatic feature is the same thing. The devices are next to each other. They just pick up the settings. Say, okay, here's what you got, and then it does its thing.
Yeah, and I like the security they built around. So it'll ask you for your Apple ID, but then you have to authenticate it. It'll do the 2-factor, which everybody should have turned on. Yep. But it does. It carries over all those features for you, and then you realize you had to do it manually. I had to do it manually for a couple of the test cases. Right. There are a lot of screens to go through, and I know it's whining about a first world problem, but it does save a significant amount of time, especially if you have a large group of people that, your family or your business has a lot of devices. It just simplifies the process. And it works across devices. You can do a lot of this now with the new Apple TV. Then I bought the Apple TV 4K.
Okay.
Super easy to hook up. Same thing. Basically bring your device over. Well, the Apple TV is one of the hardest devices to type passwords, and it has improved over the years.
You could speak into it now.
Right, which is nice, but it's way easier using the iPhone and tap it. Again, some very nice user-facing features that are a lot of back-end work that is now saves you a lot of time. It just makes the whole process easier. Again,
totally.
If you're mixed systems and you have Android and you have Windows, it's not quite as elegant. But if you're in like we are with iOS,
right,
it's great. So thrilled about that one. The other thing I just highlight is two that are related. One is the Apple Maps. They've really done a good job. Now I've been a critic and a fan of Apple Maps over the years. I think they've made some vast improvements to the point that it is my primary map application, and that's for a couple of reasons. One is they have made improvements. They made significant improvements with iOS 11 with the screen, the lane guidance, and it just the overall looks really sharp. But if you have an Apple Watch, it will also provide those directions to you, and it does the little nice taps.
Right. Really
like that feature. But the other thing they did, which is related to driving, which is the Do Not Disturb feature. And at first I'm like, yeah, I'm not going to want that on. I've always got to do stuff. And then by default, one of my phones, I changed it, was on, and I'm like, there's nothing so urgent.
Right. That's the whole point.
That it can't wait. Now, if I'm on a long drive, maybe it's going to be in a different story, but then it's easy enough to turn off.
Right.
But, if I'm doing a 30-minute commute or whatever it is, let it just, first off, I am annoyed, and you and I talked earlier about robocalls and spam calls and things like that. They're so interruptive. And if you're listening to a podcast or music, it's like, really? And then it'll stop it. I've got an older car stereo, so it doesn't recover nicely. And it's like, no, I'm really enjoying that fact that it's kind of giving me that little peaceful bubble.
Right.
And I can wait, for all the messages and stuff when I get home. So I have one more feature, but it's not related to that. If you want me to go into it,
that you want to talk a little bit about the camera, because we can kind of lead into that, and then I can also discuss a little more about the file format that changed too.
Great idea.
We can kind of segue from that from after this topic.
Yeah, so Apple has really pushed the camera envelope, and they've often taken some criticisms for not going down the megapixel route as the measure of how good a camera is. They're like, no, it's the size of the sensor, it's the background software that's being done that can look at the photo as it's being taken and make the adjustments on the fly, and just having such high quality sensors in there. And what they've done with the iPhone 8 Plus is that it's all new, right? So the camera components are all new. Has outstanding image stabilization.
Sure does.
But by using the combination of the processing power and other features, it's had portrait mode for a full year now.
Right.
But they've improved that significantly to the point where they have something called Stage Light. Now, this is one of my favorite features, where you take a picture of somebody, uses the facial recognition, and then essentially, instead of like putting the background, doing the bokeh effect, it'll black it all out. It highlights the light coming at the face, so it stands out, and it looks like there's a stage light in front of you.
Right.
And there's nothing behind you. And let me show you a cool new feature. Effective when people is like, oh, so what do you like about the new iPhone 8, or what's different about the iPhone 8 Plus? Stage light is the first thing I show them, and I'm not exaggerating, Dave. Easily half the people I've taken dozens and dozens of these. I have to have that picture. They've updated their LinkedIn profile, their Facebook photo, whatever it is, because it is a really cool effect, and it's so easy. And they're like, well, what'd you have to do? I'm like, I took a picture of you.
Yeah.
That's quite literally it. And you see it spin for about 2 seconds, and there it is. And people then they bring in their family. You can't really do 2 people or more. You can do a bit of a totem pole effect if people are kind of vertically aligned, which is kind of fun. And it's again, clever things that I'm slowly updating my contact list. I really like to have pictures when I get messages and stuff to show the little icon of people. So Dave, you're going to get one in a little bit. But I'm thrilled with that. And again, I think am I going to be able to do with the additional sensors in the iPhone 10 to make that even better?
Right. Maybe
that first rev, like you're saying, that beta version, if you want to call it that, might be a little iffy. But that's one area that, and I forget the gentleman that they hired to do a lot of the work on the cameras. Obviously, he's been given free reign to just go crazy, and it's awesome because they are pushing that hard year after year after year. I wish they had that on everything. I realize there are resource limitations even for a company with as much money as Apple, but you have to focus in on certain key things. And I'm really glad they've done that with all the photo work. But to your point, there's now background work that they've done on the file format. So, Dave, why don't you tell me about it?
Yeah. Well, we did. Now I just remembered we did talk about it in the last episode because I also did a video because I shared it with some of my coworkers and put it on YouTube. That's in our show notes from the episode 14. Basically, that they changed the file format for the good, I think, because it's going to make things more efficient. It's going to save a lot of space.
Yes.
That's the biggest thing. It's all I hear people complain about is, well, it's your own fault for buying a 16 gig iPhone. I mean,
well, there is that.
But still, it even if you had a 32 or a 64 or any other space for that matter, people were not taking the time to offload their photos, and they were running out of space. Yeah. So, but Apple did. We do have an article in the show notes that another one of our good friends, Jeff Gamet, wrote from Mac Observer, giving you what you need to know about HEIF, which is the new file format that Apple is using.
High efficiency image format.
That's right, and I kind of played with it, and this is after what I talked about last month. So let's say I went into Apple Photos and I went in and I wanted to do just a raw, export of the files without going through the whole process of exporting, copy, paste. So those files are, when they're stored on your Mac through Photos, are in the HEIF format.
Yeah, and that's great that's
and it stays that
across.
way. And the good thing about on Macs, no worries, you can open it. But our friends on the Windows side, well, sorry, you don't need third party to open it. Yeah. But as I talked about, OneDrive was one of the better apps that's out there for when you save your files on OneDrive.
Sure.
It has a built-in converter tool. So
good.
But and I don't want to go too deep into this since we did talk about this last month. You can grab it on the previous episode, but they are going to allow you to be able to convert back to JPEG if you wanted to, and there should be no issue with that. And if you happen to share that photo, that could potentially be a problem. But you're hoping, I think most of the time you're sharing with a fellow iPhone user,
right? The blue bubble people.
Yeah, the blue bubble people, right?
Well,
so,
it is a standard. So that's the good thing, is that this isn't something Apple proprietary.
No.
And I think it's always hard to change formats. And I'm not expecting JPEG to go away anytime soon.
No, there's no way.
And obviously Apple realizes it because you can convert. But over time, things will start to adapt. And Live Photos is a good example, right? So Live Photos, the way it was implemented, used that primary file and then kind of cheated with all the information that was kept as kind of in a sense, a movie file behind it. Now with HEIF, it's all incorporated into a container, and it allows a lot more flexibility. I think, again, here Apple is seeing, we want to implement this. It's great for file saving. You can do some really cool stuff with it. And then in 1 or 2 or 3 years from now, we're going to go, Apple adapted it not only for those features, but so they can do something cool out there that just now it's in the labs. And they're going to say, well, we can't do this until we change the file format from JPEG to something else. Oh, this meets what we need. Great. Implement it now. Get it rock solid stable. And then by 2019, 2020, some new cool camera feature is going to take it and we're just going to blow us out of the water again. So when we have 3D holographic, projections and all that, they'll be stored in HEIF.
Yep. So, but if you want to get here a little more in depth of what, as far as any settings and changes and that kind of stuff, listen back to the episode 14, and you can get some of those details as far as photos go. But yeah, a lot of powerful new features in iOS 11 relates to that. So. Another thing I wanted to talk about is there was a interesting article that came over through Ars Technica about being aware of sketchy iOS pop-ups and that want your Apple ID. And I've always wondered that, and you working in the mobility arena more so than me in the enterprise, you wonder, why do these things pop up and why? Because I see it all the time, and most of the time I trust it and say, oh, it must be just they need my iTunes password again.
Right.
But there are some sneaky pop-ups up there if you want to touch upon what your thoughts are on this.
Well, and that's the problem, is that for better or for worse, and it's gotten better, but there was a time like a year or so ago where it seems like I was getting prompted almost every day.
Right.
And so fine. I'm like, okay, well, it's an Apple pop-up, so I'll put it in, just get rid of it. And they were, background changing things in the iTunes store, the Apple store. And I think, again, some of this was related to their conversion to get people onto two-factor, but you became a bit numb to it. And that's always the problem. And that's where someone says, well, I can create an app that is legitimate, except for the fact that it's going to pop up what looks exactly like the same dialog box. So then they capture information and then throw it off somehow and then capture a password or other piece of information. Now, fortunately, there are some workarounds, but it requires education to the user, where you say, well, if you press the home screen, it will go away if it's an app. If it's a true Apple dialog box, it'll remain. Right. But again, most people aren't going to think about that. They're going to go, oh, it looks like an Apple dialog box. So it is kind of scary. My understanding is that Apple is well aware of this and is incorporating some fixes into iOS 11.1 to basically prevent that. But the challenge is there are thousands and thousands of apps that get put into the Apple App Store review system each week. So how do you make sure that every single app doesn't do anything? Because you can hide that code in there pretty well, and it says, well, I think the trick is you have to put a timer delay on there so it doesn't happen for the first month. And you make sure if the IP address is coming out of Cupertino, California, well, make sure you don't do anything nefarious. And I think it was Uber that got caught using that.
That's right.
Yeah. So it's unfortunate. There's always someone out there trying to game the system. Generally speaking, Apple's trusted and has done a good job with the App Store being out for 9 years now. That in general, the number of real issues have been virtually zero. So.
Okay. Coming up with some other stories that we didn't talk about, but I'm gonna throw another one out there because I like to do off the cuff sometimes.
Sure.
Just going over on Mac Rumors, and I knew about this article. And I wanted to actually talk about this a little bit. So on MacRumors.com, iOS 11 is installed on almost 55% of devices after only 1 month.
Yeah, that's amazing.
I can attest to that for a few reasons. In fact, I was helping my boss with his phone, and he has an iPhone 5S, and of course that's the bottom of the line as far as being able to install iOS 11. And he had some space left. It was about 1.2 gigabytes or so.
Okay.
And goes to install and says, "Sorry, I can't install this for unknown error," and retry or try again later. My reason of bringing that up is the fact that Apple, in their secretive way, downloads iOS 11 onto the device.
Right.
So it does take up space. And you can go in and delete it.
Sure.
And it'll come back.
Exactly.
So,
yes. Make it a virus?
Yeah, exactly. And of course, at this point, once you do upgrade, you can't go back. So that's what people want to still be on 10.3.3. That's fine. So that is in itself is probably a reason why there's so many people who are early adopting, because they got fed up with being nagged and they just did it.
Yeah. And, in many cases, it's not that big of a deal, especially for the iPhone.
It really isn't.
There aren't huge differences. On the iPad, though, one of the challenges that we run into, again, when you mentioned the enterprise, iOS 11 on the iPad has this fairly significant change, because now you have a dock.
Right.
You've got, split view and other features that are great. But to a group of users who aren't familiar with that and they do install it, it's a bit startling. And again, I'll give you my opinion on that, because Apple does not allow us to manage the iOS updates from a mobile device management. It's like the one thing they said, nope, sorry, Barry, you have no choice but to let us control this. Now, we do educate our users whenever there's a new version not to update, because some apps could break, and we've had that problem in the past.
Right.
We also want to make sure that they are properly educated, so when they do update, that they're ready for things. Because these upgrades are going to be fantastic for people.
Absolutely.
They're going to love this sort of stuff, but we have to prepare them and saying, well, you're not going to see this in the dock. You're going to see this on split screen. Here's how to drag and drop things. Really great features. So we have to communicate out to tell people, please do not update. Give us about a week or two so we can test the apps. As soon as we get the Gold Master, all our app developers are running the betas and they're running the Gold Masters, but things sometimes can break at the last minute, or there's something unanticipated. So, fortunately, we got to that point. Communication went out. People were comfortable, and we've been getting a lot of updates. Now we can watch on our system to see how many people have updated, and similar numbers to what you're seeing.
Right.
And the response has been positive. I try to use it as an opportunity to reach out to our user base and have levels of communication and say, hey, there's these really cool new features you can take advantage of. And managing our sales force, they do like the shiny new thing. So for them, it's actually pretty exciting, but also causes some problems. You get some support questions. Why is it asking me this? How come it's popping up that? Right. What happened to this? The iOS 11 experience has been pretty good, though. I've been very pleased. And
you got to see the one difference between what you guys do and what we do is, and what I am experiencing is we BYOD. Bring the device. So we have no involvement, which I think is probably a good thing, because then we don't have to support it.
Sure.
I'm still the guru when it comes to answering the questions about utilizing and using your device, but we don't have to manage it. So, in your world, you guys are, because you own the device.
It's corporate issued, it's corporate managed, it's corporate owned, it's corporate everything, and that's just part of the regulations that I have to deal with. Right. It's a lot easier now. And the back side of that is that we're 100% iOS, so there are some pros to that as well. At least that's the way I look at it, and does make it easier. And because people have iPhones and iPads, they're very happy because they can have the same app on both devices. And then we use I think you mentioned OneDrive.
Right.
That's our canonical source of data.
Sure. And
people love the fact that they can now have that. It took a while. For a long time we didn't have that option. People were syncing to their local machines. And it was not a great experience. Now it's gotten much better. Oh,
absolutely. And I think it's just going to be even better. Other thing the article mentions too, I was going to say, is if they think that adoption will probably increase even more significantly once 11.1 comes out, because people know that's a major release. It's now, that's what a lot of people do, is they sit tight and say, you know what, I'm going to wait until Apple gets all their bugs out, because I'll be honest, there were bugs on 11.0, 11.1,
sure.
11.2, 11.3. So
And there's still a few out there.
and then there's still some out there. The other thing that we've been waiting patiently for was Apple Pay Cash.
Yes.
Being able to pay the cash once that releases, I bet that's going to spur some interest.
I understand that's available. They're having their own employees start to use that now. So I believe that's coming with 11.1, if I'm not mistaken.
That's what they're saying.
Yeah. So, and that's a nice feature. I mean, it's not something I use a lot. I've had a few people use Venmo is the app that they use, and it's real nice and easy. And I would think it'd be even cooler to be able to do stuff directly with Apple Cash.
Yep.
So
with the remaining moments we have, let's. I know you had an app you wanted to talk about, and I will mention one as well. While you're looking it up, I will give you one I would thought to be interesting. We talked about AR earlier. IKEA has a pretty amazing app, and I was kind of playing around with it. That you actually could.
we were designing the campus.
Yeah, did you use it? Okay. So IKEA's store app actually allows you to be able to put the chair in place, put the couch in place, put the bed in place, and virtually be able to set up a room so you can actually see firsthand what's out there. So I thought that that was really cool, and that's for a lot of. There's a lot more from to come with that. I can almost guarantee with others that have that. It's called the IKEA Place.
Right.
And then you just open up this app and you can go and shop for their products and create a room and virtually put each of a chair or a table or a bed or anything that's in here and just and take the picture wherever the room is and then kind of situate it. It's really cool.
Yeah, no, I think, again, this is where people are getting really creative. And that's, to me, is very useful, right? Because, IKEAs are sort of common, but they're still often a long drive from people. And you're like, okay, well, I don't know if I really want this. Now you just download the app. You're like, okay, no, you know what? It turns out I don't like the way this table looks here, or maybe it doesn't fit, or things that you can plan ahead of time. So when you get to the store, you're like, yep, that's exactly what I want. And I think it creates brand engagement. I think it's a really smart marketing tool. And frankly, it's actually kind of fun too. So
it's a lot of fun.
And I think that's where, again, the technology and by giving that ability to the programmers makes it so much easier. I mean, just from the feedback I'm hearing from the developer community around AR kits, just like, whoa, this isn't just like a interesting little side project. This is big time. We want to get in full.
Yeah. So I'll go ahead and you can tell us what app you were thinking about.
So actually, I'm going to give you a trio. One's a productivity app, and then two are games. Although the productivity app actually is its own game. So the two games, one of the first ones that I started playing with is called A-Rise. So it's capital A, capital R for augmented reality, Rise. And it's just a fun little, moving around, trying to hop between islands that are set in this AR world that's inside your world, which I maybe it's because it's new. I'm just tickled by it. You're moving these guys around, and you extend these bridges to get from different places. And then when you physically move, you get that view 360 degrees. Sure, you could spin things and all this, but you feel more immersed into it. It's ethereal right now. And again, it's early days, so it's still a little clumsy. And at times you're like, okay, it's a little clunky here, or it's a little jiggly as it moves around. But it's only been out for a couple of weeks, a month. Right. I mean, it's like, if they can do this now, this is why Tim said, give it 6 months. Another new one, actually, this is more just taking advantage of iOS 11, some of the features. One called Dragon Boom, so it's DRAG ' Boom. A great, colorful, animated type game, partially a side scroller. Again, just a lot of fun. The visuals, the music. It's one of those fun games that's taking me a little bit away from Pokemon.
No, that can't happen.
I know. So just downloaded that the other day and been having a lot of fun with that. So that's another cool one to play with. And it's a typical free to play initially. And if you want to spend money, you can. You don't have to. So I like. It's a little bit different than what we used to do with trials in these days, but you don't have to spend money if you don't want to on a lot of these apps, which is great. But I always feel that if you do play it a lot, why not throw a little money so the developers can continue to update it and things like that. But the other one you may have heard of, Dave, is PCalc. you may have heard of PCalc
Yeah.
before. PCalc has been around forever.
I've recommended that one.
in the Mac. Have you played with the AR features?
I've not.
So it's very clever because it's not. I mean, okay, Barry, why would you need virtual or augmented
virtual
reality
calculator.
in a calculator? Well, it and there are apps, other apps that do fun stuff like that, like Carrot. But with this, when you go to the About screen, the gentleman that programmed it has all sorts of virtual stuff where you can throw bananas at people, you have coins falling down, you can drive a car around, and it's a blast. I spend more time in that screen than in other games that I've tried because it's so well programmed. It's just smooth, it's fun, and obviously the programming chops are there. And I'm like, wow. So it just shows the potential. If someone wants to just play with this and can do all this in a matter of days, get the app updated for iOS 11 and have a lot of fun. And that one does cost. It's $9.99. So you want to, if you have a need for a calculator app, then there's no question about it. But otherwise, you might go, it's a little bit much. I understand that. But again, it's exciting things. They've updated the App Store, so you see a lot of this stuff highlighted. The layout I think is much better with more of the editorial views, the Today views, and to me, it's fun to go back into the App Store every day and seeing, okay, really, what's new out there. So that's where I've been spending some of my time as well.
Great. And I think that's a good note to wrap this thing up.
Sure.
Did you have any other closing comments? I mean, as far as I think iOS or podcasts in general.
It's sometimes it's hard to always talk about. Someone the first thing I get asked is like, "Oh, what's the big deal about the new iPhone?" And then sure I can show them things like the portrait mode, but when you talk about it at some length and you see all these little pieces put together and how well integrated they are, it just makes these devices so to me just fun to use, exciting to use, powerful. I mean, these devices are just so amazing these days.
Absolutely, I agree.
And, I'm about to go on a business trip, and I mean, I really can't even imagine what it's like to go back for these days because I don't have to worry about currency conversions, language conversions, maps.
It's all on there.
All these things are on there.
Powerful computer in your pocket.
And you've got great applications, Yelp and TripAdvisor and others, that if you want to find a restaurant in your city you've never been to, you can read the reviews, find out what's close by. Yelp's got a monocle view. It uses augmented reality. I know they're working on updating it so it takes advantage properly of ARKit and do these amazing things. And I just, love the technology, love what Apple's doing with this. Like I mentioned before, happy to have competition out there. I know there are people that love other devices, and that's great. I don't have a problem with people wanting to use other stuff because it does push this stuff out there. And I think that's why you're going to see some excitement with the iPhone 10. It's like, okay, great. We've got the edge-to-edge displays. We've got these amazing sensors. I mean, what they've packed into that notch is just unbelievable. I mean, in such a small space with such amount of power in a device that's smaller than the 8 Plus, and see what they do. That's on the, like you say, it's the beta. I don't disagree with you. I think you're absolutely right. There's going to be some really weird quirks, and there are going to be days I'm going to want to just. But what can then they do next year?
Exactly.
And then they rev it all up. I think it continues to be exciting times. It continues to be pushed. People are like, oh well, there's no big changes nowadays. I disagree. I think it's maybe not a big one new feature, but it's the combination of new features that continues to make this such an exciting space.
Great. Well, thank you. I really appreciate you being a great guest host today.
Thanks for having me on, Dave. I really appreciate it.
And let's close this thing up. Thanks for listening, and we hope you are more in touch with iOS after hearing this episode. Subscribe to our podcast in your favorite podcatcher, and show your friends how to look us up in iTunes. We will look forward to bringing you more useful information in future episodes. I'm David Ginsburg, and you can find me on Twitter at DaveG65.
And I'm also on Twitter at FulkB. That's FULKB.
Barry Fulk. I really appreciate you being on as a guest. And until next time, thanks for listening.